we have some movement that's taken place in the last few hours that I think everybody on the planet should be made aware of. We know, hey, I've got good news for you. We can remove some of the fear of earthquakes. The randomness of earthquakes, there is no randomness to earthquakes. Even the weird ones, the ones that are rare, are striking for a reason. And the reason there, drill point, for instance. Reason here, drill point, drill point. Reason here, Yellowstone. Over on the West Coast, volcanoes, geothermal, and drill points. Hawaii, there's a reason there's an earthquake striking there. It's not just randomly striking there, it's happening there because of the volcano and the magma chamber. Over to the west, we get right along the plate boundaries of Japan. Those aren't random. They're all the same sized. And they're all traced back to what? To our deep quakes. So really, when you see a bunch of deep earthquakes, it's like seeing a storm forming. And then you start to see the storms actually come your way over the course of time. And the storms follow a path. So this removes all the randomness of earthquakes. Because everybody's worried, oh, it's just going to, the big one's going to hit the West Coast and I don't know when it's going to come. No, you'll know when it's coming when the rest of the entire planet starts moving and you think you're the only people that aren't going to move. That's when you are knowing you're going to get hit. And that's why we're looking for a new 5 to hit on the West Coast of the U.S.
And that one just hit a few hours ago. So he was right on within the margin of error. But that's not the big one. That's not the mega quake that he's predicting. And, I've been watching him for years, and the only time I ever remember him predicting or forecasting an earthquake as large as he is right now is in 2011, which was right before the mega quake, the 9.0, hit Japan. And he was right on. And everybody was like, oh, you're a fear monger and all this stuff. And then it hit. So he has the best science. He really has the best science. So if you don't know about Dutch Sense, I'll put his links below and you can study it out. But for right now, I want to move on. Before we get to the megaquake, I want to show you what's going on with all of the volcanoes, because that is huge with what is going on with the earthquakes. There is a massive worldwide volcanic eruption happening. Now, if you haven't seen the video that I put up about the Hawaii earthquakes and volcanoes yesterday, please go back and watch that. I'll link it below and I'll link it at the end. But it talks about the pole shift and all of this stuff and the incoming celestial event that is causing the earth to react the way it is. And it shows the science, it shows the actual numbers, the actual statistics, the actual USGS maps, all of it, the cracks in the earth, the cracks in Africa, the sinkholes, everything that's happening to show you that this is unprecedented. There have never been this many earthquakes in the recorded history of USGS. And it's not just the volcanic eruption that's happening in Hawaii. That's sucking up all the oxygen out of the news cycle. But 15 other volcanoes erupted in one day, just 3 days ago. And right now, today, we have Mount St. Helens having earthquake swarms, Mount Rainier having earthquake swarms, Yellowstone having earthquake swarms, just like we saw before Hawaii blew, before Vanuatu blew, before Mount Agung blew. These are all things that have happened in the last year as all of this activity seems to be sparking up and culminating right now. I want to show you what's going on with these other volcanoes today.
This, one more time, this should be all over the news right now. This is the 7th going into the 8th. The magma chamber, it was all the way up at the surface at the top overflowing last week. And I even put out a graphic over on Facebook of all places. Let me show this to you. I put out a graphic yesterday where I took a screenshot of the event last week when it was overflowing and put it side by side with what's going on now. April 29th and 30th, 2018, look at it, up here overflowing at the top. And then 1 week later, boom, it's all the way down, thousands of feet. Again, that is so much, you wouldn't even believe it. Draining out. And the same thing happened in 2011. There were a bunch of eruptions. Hawaii drained out. Then the eruption stopped. Then the big earthquakes hit. That's what happened. Now let's talk about the United States.
Let's take a look at the situation in Hawaii. And is this part of something bigger? Could it be the beginning of something bigger? The situation itself, if I can get the map to hold still, there we go. The situation itself is kind of an enigma. Just the location of these new vents that are occurring on the Big Island. They're so far away from Kilauea. That's 24 miles. not exactly sure. I didn't measure from there to Puohu, but it looks like to me it's at least 15. But there are now 12 new vents. On this map right here, it's showing 3,195 earthquakes. And you can see the red ones. There's 3 that's occurred in the last minute. It's pretty much non-stop energy. And it's probably even difficult to separate one earthquake from the other. That's the solar flux unit. This is where we're at with regard to solar minimum. And you can see we're way down here, and the number 67. 67 is the lowest I've ever seen it. So, is it part of the grand solar minimum?
Okay, so we're talking about, very rare event here with Kilauea draining on top of Pu'u'o'o collapsing. They're 11.5 miles apart, which means the magma chamber down below is fully draining its contents entirely, not just at Pu'u'o'o, but the greater Kilauea magma chamber. That's what's going on. And this is down out of view. This reminds me exactly of what happened in 2011, 5 days before the big mega quake over in Japan.
Okay, so those are the symptoms with the Hawaii volcanoes that we saw right before the megaquake in Japan in 2011, and we're seeing again the same exact symptoms. But this time, now watch closely, this is going to be all the volcanic activity. This is going to cover Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, Yellowstone, and all of that, and lots of other volcanoes around the world right now. They're going active right now.
Deep earthquake event is still ongoing, and I think it's pretty much obvious that there's something going on with the Pacific Plate and volcanism overall. Now, before we get into the United States, let's just quickly go check the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center and see what's showing up on there. So, Kluchetskoye up in Kamchatka Peninsula, Reventador in Ecuador, Dukono in Indonesia, Sabancaya in Peru, and we'll repeat them all. Kilauea, volcanic ash emissions ended. Yeah, well, as the lava flow is draining out, right? It's going out in the ocean. Of course it has. It's still erupting, guys. Let's see. Kluchetskoye, Sabancaya, Dukono, Reventador, Bagana. Minor smoke and ash emissions over in Papua New Guinea. Let's keep going down the list. Bagana is on there again. And we get into yesterday. Yesterday, looks like Ebico was the only new addition on the list, which really is. Another from Cleveland. Hold on. So we'll go over here in the volcanic eruptions. We had 15 in a day 3 days ago. So now we're going to have the USGS feed for the last 24 hours turned on, and you're going to notice a few things here, in the West Coast in particular, all the way up to Yellowstone. First of all, it's a little swarm going on here at Yellowstone. That shouldn't be a shock. It's inside the park. You've already had a 3, and we would expect some other swarmage to go on with that. But we go over here to the West Coast and to Washington State, and this stack right here was ongoing a day ago, and yesterday I did an update halfway through the day. You could probably catch that on Copper Tropicals channel. And we already looked this up, but I'm going to show you again what's there now. You should always look up the swarms. If the swarms are going on the West Coast, check out what's at the location. It might give you an answer as to why the swarm is happening there. And lo and behold, where are we going in on here? We're going in on the center crater of Mount St. Helens, on the rising dome coming out of the center. Well, obviously, there is a rise going on at the dome at Mount St. Helens. That's why there's an earthquake swarm happening there. We go up to the north, and we have another swarm that started 2 days ago, and it's going on till today with up to a 1.4, 27 kilometers north-northwest of Packwood, Washington. Longtime viewers already know what's there. I know what's there. New viewers, do you know what's 27 kilometers north-northwest of Packwood? Now you do. Here's the center crater of Mount Rainier. And we're also down below it. So, in other words, we've got swarmage happening at Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier and Mount, we don't even call it Mount Yellowstone, right? Yellowstone supervolcano. And that's just the tip of it. You have to add in Hawaii and Cleveland also into that over the last day.
Now, I got to stop here because this totally reminds me of a prophetic dream that I had years and years ago. You can see I posted it here. It's just a little 4-minute video. I posted it in November of 2016, and it's End Time Dream, Volcanic Eruption, Mount Hood, Volcano, Oregon, Fireballs Falling. Oh, wait, that was one that was a confirmation that somebody had emailed me that I read. I'll put the links to both of these. Actually, there's 3 of them. Here's mine, November 1st of 2016. I had posted it, I guess, a couple of weeks earlier. Prophetic end time dream vision, volcano erupts, fireballs, catastrophe. Had to jump over to my other channel. Okay, here's the original. This one is two prophetic dreams from Leslie. One is a tsunami in New York. See, that plays into what my last video about the Hawaii earthquake and volcano was all about. That tsunamis were in there. Please go back and watch it if you haven't. And volcano erupts in Mount Hood, Oregon. And here we have, all of a sudden, as all of this activity starts, we're starting to see these earthquake swarms in Oregon and around Mount St. Helens. We're near Mount Hood area. So it's interesting. I'm not saying this is absolutely going to happen. It's going to happen this week or even this year. I'm just saying, heads up, because this stuff will eventually happen. But it's interesting that we're starting to see things heat up. So anyway, that was posted back in 2015, August 30th of 2015. And then I took a year off this channel. Then when I came back a year later, one of the first ones I posted was one of my own that I had about this volcanic eruption. And it had this lady's name in it and all this stuff. And it was weird because I was shown that it was smoking, that the volcano had started smoking. And all of the news reports kept telling everybody, oh, it's fine, like Yellowstone with the geyser and stuff. They're like, oh, everybody, you're making too big of a deal out of it. It's fine. And the dream was that I was on this balcony of this sort of townhome or this home, and with my mother, and I was trying to tell her, Mom, you have to evacuate. I knew my name. It wasn't me. It was somebody else. Angela Palmer, I think, was the name. And I was telling her, Mom, you have to evacuate, please. I know it's going to blow. And she's like, no, it's not. The news, I've been watching the news on it. The geologists say everything's fine. And right then, while we were out on the deck discussing it, and she's just sitting in her deck chair, then it started spitting fireballs up into the air, and we could see the houses and stuff down at the base of the mountain, and the fires catching and everything. So anyway, that's worth a watch. I will put all of the links down below in the description box, so you might want to go watch that because it's pretty interesting in light of what's going on right now. Okay, without further ado, this is where DutchSense predicts or forecasts the megaquake. And again, there's nothing set in stone. There's no 100% foolproof way to forecast. There is science, solid science, just like a meteorologist will predict the weather, and we all watch the weather forecast, but sometimes they say it's going to rain and it doesn't, and it moves in a different direction or whatever. So don't get your underpants in a bunch if this doesn't happen. This is about preparing people, and just in case, this is unprecedented activity right now. There's a lot of energy transfer, and the Pacific plate is going bananas. So better safe than sorry. So I'll just let him tell you the magnitudes and where he thinks these could potentially hit.
As we go further to the north, we get into the Taiwan, South Japan, Okinawa region, and this 6.1, and we add in all the 4s, and up here we also have multiple eruptions that have occurred. Well, guys, this is the spot where we're flirting with the potential of what I believe could be leading to the possibility now this week of a megaquake to be happening in the West Pacific. Look what's going on here. We've got the deep earthquakes. We've got the 6.1. We've got the 4s and the clusters. We've got the 5s creeping up the coast. We've got Hawaii draining, and we've got a 7.0 earthquake, 6.9 associated with that, and a 6.1 associated separately over to the west. Force is clearly trying to escape out over towards Europe. It's snaking its way out across the plate boundary, following our arrows almost perfectly. So there's a great amount of force right now, and it's trying to get its way out, but we've got a big silent zone in here. So it's blocked, it's locked, it's somewhere in here. There's a great amount of force. And I think if there's a potential for it to go up, how high will it go? Well, if we're already at 6.9, we should probably take it a step higher. 6.9 for the plate. I'm going to take it a step higher. So this is a 6.1, and we're going to add this all together, all the eruptions and all the 5s, and I'm going to put it at a 6.9 to 7.0 at this location. I'm sorry, a 7.9 to 8.0 at this location. Yeah, 7.9 to 8.0 at this location. And I'm taking this step higher because all the other locations are going a step higher this week as well. Every single one. Everywhere where you see 4s, you're going to pretty much see 5s. Everywhere you see 5s, you're pretty much going to see at least one 6. And everywhere where you see 6s and upper 6s, you're going to see something larger. And how much larger? I'm putting it at a low end on that. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm 100% wrong. I hope it fizzles out and goes away. It's like a storm. You see big dark clouds off in the distance. There's tornadoes reported already on the ground. Sun goes down, storm dies out over a few hours. That's what you hope for. In this case, it's not going to die out over a few hours. This has been building. We are at 66 different deep earthquakes as of today. And that's even a low-end count if you guys want to really consider, because we consider everything 200 and more kilometers deep a deep earthquake, and there's some that are probably a little shallower that are still deep, like a point where the plate is coming underneath the crust, or where the asthenosphere is underneath the crust. Long story short, it's going to be a big week in the West Pacific, and I'm looking right down here in the middle of all this mess for the release to happen, and I'm leaning here towards the west, and this puts it into Taiwan and South Japan. That's where it puts it. It's not my, it's my take on the magnitude, but it's not my take on it. You can see it. That's the middle point between the two sets of quakes. Let me turn down the rings. So the middle point between the two sets of quakes, between the 6 down to the south and up here to the north. And if we take it all else into account, we've already had the mega quake up in Japan in 2011. We're repeating right now. The only difference is it appears to be just a little bit to the south. And we'll see by the end of the week. How many days did it take from the point of the collapse in Hawaii back in 2011? When Pu'u'o'o collapsed and Kilauea drained, how many days? From the point, well, let's see, it was the 5th to the 11th. So we're looking at 6 days. We're looking at about the time that my forecast is going to take for this week. So West Pacific, we're not kidding. We're not playing around. I'm not trying to get YouTube views. You can write it down and write people emails yourself and say, rumor has it that there may be the potential of a large earthquake in the West Pacific based upon Pacific-wide movement, and the volcanoes are letting us know something's going on.
So that's the prediction, and that's conservative. He has said that it could be between 8 and 9 magnitude. Please pray for the people in Hawaii. Please pray for the people in that area that he just warned. And if you live on the coastlines, anywhere in the Pacific, anywhere on the Pacific plate, whether it's West Pacific or the East Pacific, whether it's the West Coast of the United States or all the way over in Japan, if you do not have an evacuation plan, if you do not have a tsunami plan, if you haven't ever looked into it and checked the elevation of where you are and the roadways out and all of that, I'm just going to end this video with a little prepper thing where he can tell you how to go to Google Earth and how to find your elevation and how to find your route out. And he can warn you of a couple of the mistakes and pitfalls that people made when they were trying to escape during the 2011 Japan megaquake and tsunami. So if you don't live on the coastline, you can probably just click off here. But if you do live on a coastline, this might be helpful to somebody. So I love you all. God bless you. Let's keep praying for everybody in the Pacific.
What's your earthquake plan? Do you have one? Do you know what to do? How about a tsunami plan? You know, I would like to take this time quickly to show you how to look for a tsunami plan in your area. You know, a lot of people don't think about this. I'm going to use San Francisco as an example. So here's, San Francisco, and we're looking at a screen. Now you can get this free. This is Google Earth. As you move your mouse around in the lower right-hand corner, it'll give you your elevation. It's down below Google Earth, and it says ELEV. And everywhere where my mouse is, that's the elevation of the topography. So we get here, and we're right at an elevation of about 50 to 60 feet above sea level. And we get right down to the ocean front, and we're right at 0 foot, right? And we go down into the ocean from there. So here we are, and all these people live starting 20 feet above sea level and going up to about 200 to 300 feet, and 300 to 400 feet, and then it drops back down. It goes back down over here next to nothing, and down here we get back out to the bay, right, or into the harbor. So, in other words, there's 2 spots around San Francisco itself, and there's a hill in between. I think you guys know the city is very hilly to begin with. If there's a tsunami generated, you need to be able to make your way to a place that's at least 100 feet above sea level, just in case the tsunami is 100 foot or less. Now, the chance of it being more than 100 foot, I mean, Japan's megaquake 9.0 produced up to a 100-foot high wave. So, you would think it would be something probably a little less than that, hopefully, and you would need to get to higher ground. But the way you know your elevation, you need to do this now. You need to find your house wherever you are along here. Let's say you live down along the coast somewhere, and you live down near 3 rocks, and down here in the town, you've got an elevation of 90 feet. Okay, well, that might be acceptable, might be, but you need an evacuation plan. You need to look up these roads and see how high they go up. Will you be able to drive up them? What if it's traffic jam? You're going to be able to get out and run up? You need to have the run-up plan in case you need to get out of your car. Final piece of advice for the tsunami plan is every minute that you drive parallel to the coast is a minute you could be driving away from the coast. So, in other words, don't drive along the ocean, drive away from the ocean. Every second spent moving away from the ocean will be a second that could save your life. Every second that you spend driving along the ocean on some kind of scenic route to see the ocean, no, you need to be driving away from there. I noticed in 2011 when the Japanese earthquake happened and the tsunami was coming in, there were several spots where people could have turned off the road and driven up a gravel road or whatever, and you could see it was sloped up and you could have driven up there and at least gotten out and ran some more. Instead, they're trying to gun it for the highway or whatever was up ahead. There was some kind of bridge or something they were going to try and go to, and I thought, if they would only turned and driven away from the wave at 40 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour, they would have been way better off in trying to get away from it. So your escape plan needs to be not only, where am I going to go here nearby, but you need to look out around the area and figure out, if I have to stop my car along this way, where am I going to run? You're going to run away from the ocean, obviously, and you're going to go up as high as possible if there's an incoming tsunami. That's just using the West Coast as an example. You need to have a tsunami plan and you need to have an earthquake plan. Now, you probably should go watch some of the Hawaii videos of the Hawaii 6.9 earthquake as that magma was punching through the crust. And that big event, and it was big. It just gives you a great example. There was a woman who was cooking dinner, and she had all kinds of stuff like boiling water on the stove. And the other person was recording, and the whole earthquake, 6.9, 7.0 earthquake happened, and they run into the kitchen, and the woman standing there holding up the refrigerator with both hands leaning against it because her refrigerator would have slid out and fallen over. Well, that's just one item you could think about in your house, and then look at the rest of them and understand that those start to move when earthquakes of any significant size happen. So you're going to need to secure your heavy appliances. You need to also have an emergency kit. So the emergency kit will be something that you keep by the door, and in case of an emergency, you either grab it and run out, or you grab it and go to your emergency shelter inside your house. You need to have a place that you've already designated to take shelter from earthquakes, storms, and any other type of natural disaster that may require protection, or human-made disaster in some cases. And also, you need an exit plan, an evacuation plan, an on-foot plan. And I'm not going to give you all these, ideas and stuff. I mean, come on, you guys can do this. You're grown adults, most of you. So you can go do a search if you want to find out how to do these things if you don't know. Most of you probably have a better idea how to do it than I do. So just make a plan and know what to do.